Hey guys, tonight we tumble headfirst into one of the stranger corners of Greek mythology, the tale of how a newborn god, barely minutes old, wandered out of his cave, made a musical instrument out of a turtle, and somehow ended up inventing the lyre. It's a story filled with confusing logic, questionable decisions, and a turtle who definitely did not sign up for this. But, like most ancient myths, it has that dreamy, sideways feel that might just lull you to sleep. Right around the moment someone uses sheep guts as violin strings, you start in the still dark of early dawn. The cave is cold, damp, and very much off-grid. No fire, no torchlight, just the distant gleam of moonlight bouncing off rock walls and the echo of dripping water somewhere deeper inside. It smells like moss, minerals, and whatever warm earth smells like when it's been holding a secret for centuries. Which, in this case, it has. Because this is the birth cave of Hermes. You probably won't survive this, by the way. Being mortal and all, dropping in on the birth of a god tends to cause side effects. But it's fine. You're only visiting, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and drop a comment with where you're listening from, and what time it is. Are you under a weighted blanket at 1:14 a.m.? Staring at a ceiling fan in Jakarta? I'd love to know. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The story opens on Mount Cyllene, in Arcadia. It's not a famous mountain by Olympus standards. There are no glittering temples or golden apple orchards. Mostly it's goat trails and thorny scrub, with the occasional shrine dedicated to local gods who've been half forgotten. But this morning, or what would eventually be morning, something important is happening beneath its rocky surface. Maya, a quiet, reclusive nymph, is giving birth. She's not the noisy type. She doesn't call on goddesses or midwives. She doesn't light sacred fires or chant hymns to Hera. She's doing this her own way, in a cave, without so much as a mattress or a snack. The baby arrives quietly, almost sneakily, fitting for who he'll grow up to be. Hermes is born just as the moon slips behind a cloud. He's not like other babies. For one, he's oddly clean. Also, alert. You expect newborns to blink and flail and maybe cry. Hermes does none of that. He just opens his eyes, takes a look around, and raises one eyebrow. The vibe is very much alright, I'm here. Let's get started. Historians still argue whether Greek myths were meant to be taken as full-blown divine biographies or as parables with just enough nonsense to keep things interesting. Hermes' birth falls firmly into the myth as weird bedtime story category. Because, within moments, the baby is on the move. You watch, slightly alarmed, as he wriggles out of his swaddle like a tiny escape artist. No one taught him how to do that. He just knows. His fingers are small but fast. His legs kick like he's late for something. And before you know it, he's out of the cave and crawling across damp grass. The world outside is that eerie pre-dawn blue. Trees lean over the hillside like sleepy giants. Somewhere nearby, a nightjar sings its last note of the night. Dew clings to every surface. And right there, next to a patch of wild thyme and a rock shaped suspiciously like a snail, sits a turtle, just a regular turtle. Brown shell. Blinking slowly. Minding its own turtle business, and Hermes, tiny, barefoot, unbothered, walks right up to it. You know that feeling when someone brilliant suddenly fixates on something totally random? That's Hermes right now. He looks at the turtle like it's both a gift and a problem he's determined to solve. His eyes narrow. He circles it once, inspecting. Then, still dripping from his escape from the cave, he lifts the turtle gently and carries it off like he's just made a crucial discovery. No one really knows why the turtle was there. Some versions say it was a sacred omen. Others say Hermes just had a fondness for strange pets. But one fragment of ancient text claims the turtle followed him of its own accord, drawn by the sweet scent of mischief. Scholars generally ignore that source. But honestly, who knows, You follow the baby god back to the cave, where he places the turtle beside a pile of reeds and sheep gut. Don't ask where he got those, it's Hermes, he's resourceful. What follows is one of the weirdest DIY projects in mythology. No hammer, no nails, just sheer confidence. Hermes gently scoops out the turtle, again, don't ask, hollows the shell, strings it with stretched gut, and fastens the reeds in place. He adjusts a few pebbles for tuning. And suddenly, there it is. The lyre. Ancient Greece's most iconic instrument, born from turtle-based innovation and sleep-deprived divine energy. You'd think something invented like that would sound awful. But when Hermes strums it, soft notes float through the cave like silk threads drifting on warm air. You feel it in your chest, buzzing faintly, like distant thunder or an early yawn. The sound is both foreign and familiar. Dreamlike, there's no audience, but you get the sense that the earth itself is listening. Even the cave seems quieter now. Shadows pause. The rocks lean closer, you sit on a stone, still damp from dew, and close your eyes. The first lyre. The first music. All because a baby god didn't want to nap. You're still sitting in that cave, watching a newborn god cradle a turtle shell lyre like a beloved toy, when it dawns on you, this is not a one-time moment. Hermes isn't just inventing an instrument, he's inventing a habit. Mischief, curiosity, and a complete disregard for what's age-appropriate are going to be his lifelong trademarks. The lyre makes a faint twang, then another, as Hermes tries different ways of plucking the strings. He tilts his head, listening. Adjusts the pitch. Taps the shell. Nods, satisfied. Then, like any toddler-turned deity with a new toy and too much energy, he sets it aside and decides to go on a walk, a very long walk. You stumble after him, half amazed. Half deeply concerned. He's not even 1 day old, and already he's scaling slopes like he owns them. Which, as a god, he kind of does. The sky is starting to lighten, soft pink clouds on the horizon, dew still thick on every blade of grass. Crickets quiet down. Birds consider singing but seem to sense something is off, because Hermes is on a mission. He's not sure what the mission is yet, but you can tell by the gleam in his eye that something deliciously troublesome is brewing. He heads downhill through the Arcadian wilderness. Past twisted olive trees and thorny shrubs, through the kind of underbrush that would leave a mortal child completely scratched up and sobbing. But Hermes is fine. Not just fine, gleeful. He hums to himself. Occasionally strums a single note on the lyre, then giggles. Once he picks up a shiny rock and pockets it for absolutely no reason, and then, without warning, he spots them, cattle. Not just any cattle, these ones belong to Apollo, god of music, medicine, poetry, archery, and apparently, really well-kept livestock. The animals are enormous, golden-hued, practically glowing in the early light. You'd expect a god's herd to look majestic, and you would be correct. Their horns curve like polished ivory. Their breath steams softly. They chew in unison, like a very well-rehearsed choir. Hermes watches them with the expression of a kid in a candy shop, if that kid also happened to be a cunning immortal with zero moral hesitation. You can practically hear the gears turning. Lyre in one hand, toddler belly poking out from his blanket toga, he begins to hatch a plan. Historians still argue whether this part of the story was meant to show Hermes' genius or just prove that gods never had to learn consequences like the rest of us. Either way, what happens next is a chaotic blend of baby energy and criminal brilliance. Hermes doesn't just take the cattle. That would be boring. No, he disguises his theft. First, he gathers bundles of reeds and binds them to his own feet to disguise his footprints. Yes. A baby. Inventing crude sandals with reverse tread so his tracks point the wrong direction. Then, just to be extra annoying, he makes the cows walk backwards too. Every step away from their pasture looks like a step toward it. It's part heist, part prank. And 100% Hermes. You trail behind this parade of confusion as Hermes herds the cattle toward a remote part of the Peloponnese. He whistles softly, plucking at his lyre occasionally, somehow keeping the sacred cows calm. One of them tries to wander off. Hermes puffs up his chest and gestures like a very stern babysitter. The cow sulks and returns to the group. You reach a clearing dotted with low shrubs and a stream burbling politely nearby. This, apparently, is the chosen hideout. Hermes drives the cattle into a thicket, then sits cross-legged on a rock, sipping water from a cupped palm like he's just finished a long day at work. The lyre rests beside him. A breeze moves through the grass. You sit too, still not quite believing any of this is happening, and then he lights a fire. Wait. He knows how to make fire. He's been alive for, 8 hours. And here he is arranging sticks, using flint like a caveman savant, and casually roasting 2 of Apollo's sacred cattle like it's Tuesday night barbecue time. The smell is incredible. Smoky. Rich. Slightly blasphemous. You sniff the air and consider whether god beef counts as ethically sourced. Hermes doesn't eat it, though. He arranges the meat into portions and performs a ritual sacrifice, classic Olympian protocol. A bit of thigh here, a dash of fat there. He murmurs some words you can't quite hear. It's all very solemn, in that way only babies performing illegal rites can manage. Then he hides everything. Ashes are buried. Bones are tossed. Fire is doused. He even smooths the ground with a branch so no one can tell he was there. You have to admit, it's impressive. A little horrifying. But mostly impressive. At this point, the lyre is resting gently on his lap again. He plucks a tune, something lazy and low. Almost jazzy, if jazz had been invented 2,000 years early and on a turtle shell. You hum along under your breath, and the cows, scattered through the bushes, sway slightly with the rhythm. Some scholars argue that this moment marks Hermes' full transition from divine baby to full-fledged trickster god. Others say that's nonsense, it's just a weird myth, and we're all reading too much into it. A few fringe historians suggest Hermes may have been a symbolic figure, embodying travel, deception, and invention all at once. But sitting here, watching him lull stolen cows to sleep with a lyre made of turtle, it doesn't feel symbolic. It just feels like bedtime. The sky is fully blue now. Sunlight filters through olive branches, dappling the ground in warm puddles. You lean back against a rock. Hermes yawns once, then vanishes behind a tree, probably off to cause more trouble. The clearing is still warm from the morning sun, and you're just starting to wonder where Hermes went when you hear a clink. A soft, deliberate sound. Then another. You rise, brush off the dew-damp grass, and follow the noise, ducking under low branches and stepping over tangled roots. There he is, Hermes, already 2 hills away, walking like he owns the place. You hurry to catch up, and when you do, he's crouched beside a stream, his fingers deep in mud. What now? You whisper, half to yourself. He holds up a rock like it contains the secrets of the universe. Then drops it. He's foraging again. But for what? The lyre is slung across his back with a reed twine strap. He moves confidently. Like he's mapping the terrain for future schemes. You watch him fiddle with a few river reeds, pluck one clean, and chew it. Then he starts gathering dried leaves, bits of straw, and for some reason, a clump of goat fur. He's planning something. Again, and sure enough, moments later, Hermes sits in a sunbeam and begins crafting. You sit a polite distance away so as not to disturb the creative process, but it's hard not to peek. He's making footwear. Possibly. Some sort of reed fur contraption. You're 90% sure none of this is sanitary. He tests the slipper-like shapes against his feet, nods in approval, then promptly discards them in favor of doing something much more dramatic. He lies flat in the grass and starts dragging his body backward, smoothing the earth with his stomach like a clumsy mop. You can't help but laugh, quietly. Is this part of the plan? Is he trying to confuse any divine investigators? Because if so, it's weirdly effective. historians still argue whether Hermes' effort to erase his tracks reflects deeper cultural ideas about divine cunning or if it's just comic relief. Either way, you're now watching a baby god wriggle around like a rogue caterpillar in a toga. You follow as he rises again and heads deeper into the wilderness, this time with more purpose. Trees thin out. Rocks grow jagged. The terrain shifts from gentle Arcadian softness to something a bit more Olympian in tone, sharper, drier, full of glinting mineral veins and scrubby plants that look like they bite back, and then, not far ahead, you see it, a golden shimmer. Just for a second. Then again, behind a boulder, that's not sunlight, that's Apollo, you crouch instinctively. Hermes doesn't, he struts right up to the edge of a low ridge and peers down at the god of the sun, who is currently inspecting a set of confused hoofprints. Apollo wears white and gold, obviously, with a robe that flows like it was designed by a cloud and a laurel wreath that somehow doesn't move even in the breeze. His bow is slung casually across his back, and his expression says, someone is about to be in so much trouble. Apollo kneels. He sniffs the air. He frowns at the ground. He walks in a spiral. Then he mutters something in ancient Attic you can't quite catch, but the tone is universal, really? A toddler did this? He is, to put it gently, not pleased, and honestly, who could blame him? He woke up expecting a peaceful morning with his son cows and now finds himself tracking backwards hoofprints and the faint smell of baby lotion. From your spot behind the ridge, you watch as Apollo performs a low chant and presses 2 fingers to the dirt. A golden shimmer spreads from his touch, revealing faint echoes of what should be there, the true path, the missing herd, the smoke from the hidden sacrifice. Apollo's got forensic magic. Not great news for Hermes. Back at the ridge, the baby god is entirely unfazed. He starts playing the lyre again, softly. A curious breeze rustles the olive leaves above you. It's oddly calming, for you, not Apollo. You inch closer. Apollo's face twitches. He hears the music. Looks up. Squints into the trees. Really? He mutters, in a voice only gods can make sound like thunder and sarcasm at once. He knows, the golden glow intensifies. Birds take flight. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbles, not because of a storm, but because someone's about to get scolded by a very radiant big brother. Still, Hermes does not flee. He just keeps playing. The tune is lazy, a little smug, and weirdly catchy. Some scholars suggest this moment is a turning point, not just for Hermes, but for how divine conflict in myth could be handled through charm instead of force. Others think that's giving Hermes too much credit. Still, it's hard to ignore the symbolism, one god's cattle versus another god's music. One defined by light and order, the other by shadows and tricks. Eventually, Apollo rises. Dusts off his robes. Then, in a single flash, he vanishes, presumably to find Zeus. You and Hermes are left alone again. Hermes finally looks at you. Just for a second. Like he's checking to see if you were impressed. You nod, stunned. He grins. You lie back in the grass, staring up at the olive branches. Somewhere above, clouds gather again, this time not with rain, but with consequence. But for now, Hermes hums a tune and taps the rhythm on his turtle-shell lyre. The world holds its breath. The moment doesn't last. Somewhere above you, divine footsteps are echoing through the clouds, because when Apollo storms off to get his dad, you know things are about to escalate. You sit up slowly, brushing stray olive leaves from your tunic, and glance over at Hermes, who is now lounging like he's on vacation. He leans against a tree root, casually plucking his lyre, one foot swinging like he has zero worries, even though an extremely glowing, extremely older brother is currently lodging a divine complaint with the king of the gods. And sure enough, not long after, there's a rumble, low, deep, like the belly of a mountain just cleared its throat. The air stills. Even the insects go silent. A golden shimmer surrounds you both, and before you can blink, you're no longer in Arcadia, you're on Olympus. It's disorienting, in a dramatic, vaguely nauseating kind of way. The grass is too green. The clouds are too symmetrical. And everything smells like cedarwood and extremely clean linen. Olympus is the kind of place that has permanent golden hour lighting. There's probably a harp playing somewhere, though no one's holding it, and in the middle of it all stands Zeus, tall, bearded, radiating the calm menace of a CEO who just found out someone's been using the company Pegasus without authorization. He doesn't speak right away. He just looks, first at Apollo, who's pacing and gesturing wildly. And then at Hermes, who has that face toddlers make when they're about to explain why coloring on the wall was actually a brilliant idea. Apollo steps forward first, arms crossed, robe billowing slightly for dramatic effect. "He stole my cattle," he says, pointing at Hermes with the flair of someone used to winning arguments. "He sacrificed 2 of them. He lied. And then he played music like it was all fine." Zeus turns to Hermes. "Well?" Hermes blinks. Innocently. He's still a baby, remember, technically just a few hours old. He shrugs, palms up, as if to say, "Cows. I don't even know what a cow is, sir," and then he speaks. Not baby babble. Full sentences. Articulate, persuasive, and wildly untrue. "I was asleep the whole time," he says sweetly. "In the cave. Wrapped up tight. Ask my mother." You glance over at Maya, who has appeared suddenly beside Zeus. She raises one elegant eyebrow but says nothing. Technically, she wasn't watching him. It's a loophole Hermes exploits gleefully. The gods look stunned. Not by the lie, they're used to lies, but by the nerve. Historians still argue whether this scene was meant to satirize legal systems or just demonstrate Hermes' divine potential for persuasion. Whatever the purpose, it's an ancient version of courtroom drama, with Zeus as the judge, Apollo as the plaintiff, and Hermes as a one-man legal circus. Apollo sighs in frustration. "Father, he played the lyre. Where did he even get that? No one's ever heard that sound before." This, finally, catches Zeus's interest. "You invented something?" He asks Hermes, eyes narrowing, not with anger, but with curiosity. Hermes nods. "I call it a lyre. Want to hear it?" And just like that, the entire atmosphere shifts. He plucks a few notes. Soft, lilting, playful. The melody flows through the air like smoke from a spice market. Even Apollo stops mid-rant, turning slowly to listen. It's beautiful. Somehow the turtle shell and sheep gutta become something transcendent. The music is gentle, rising and falling like waves. You feel it in your chest, not as sound, but as warmth. The tune shifts, now funny, now wistful, now calming again. It's like he's telling a story without words. Zeus leans back, smiling faintly. You suspect this isn't going the way Apollo expected. When the last note fades, there's silence. Then, surprisingly, applause, polite, celestial applause. Even Hera, off to the side with her peacocks and her wine, gives a small nod of approval. Apollo, clearly wrestling with several emotions at once, exhales sharply and mutters, "Fine." It's impressive. You half expect Hermes to gloat, but he doesn't. He just looks up at Apollo and says, "You can have it." Everyone freezes. The lyre, Hermes adds. "You can have it." Trade? Apollo squints. What kind of trade? Hermes taps his chin dramatically, like he hasn't already planned this entire negotiation. "Your golden staff. The one with the snakes. And maybe, lessons in prophecy." The deal is outrageous. Also irresistible. Apollo hesitates for 3 seconds, then agrees. The lyre passes from one god to another. And in return, Hermes receives the caduceus, a staff with 2 twined serpents, and a blessing of foresight, plus a very reluctant nod of respect. In that moment, something changes. The baby god becomes something more. Not just a thief, not just a musician, but a trickster with status. A negotiator. A diplomat. Maybe even, an artist. Some scholars argue that this deal, this musical bartering, marks the birth of culture as much as it does myth. The intersection of theft, innovation, and charm. Others say it's just a weird excuse for why Apollo plays the lyre in later stories. Either way, Hermes walks away from the encounter grinning and twirling his new golden staff like it's a toy. Zeus watches him go with mild amusement. Apollo sighs and begins tuning the lyre. You trail after Hermes again. It's getting darker now. Olympus time moves strangely. The clouds turn lavender, and the air smells faintly of cinnamon and lightning. Hermes doesn't say a word. He just hums. The same tune from earlier, now slightly faster. There's a rhythm to his steps, a bounce that wasn't there before. You can tell he's not done. This wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. Hermes is on the move again. You're not sure where he's going, neither is he, probably, but that doesn't matter. His feet skip lightly across Olympus's marble walkways, which echo slightly, as if even the floor can't quite keep up. He twirls the golden caduceus like a parade baton, whistles a tune only gods can hum, and glances back once to make sure you're still following. You are. Obviously, he leads you through gardens filled with impossible plants, silver olive trees, roses that shimmer blue in the moonlight, vines that hum lullabies if you get too close. Gods have odd tastes. Statues pose dramatically around every fountain. A few seem to wink as you pass. One raises a stone eyebrow at Hermes, who sticks out his tongue in return. He doesn't stop until he reaches a quiet courtyard with a domed roof of lapis lazuli. There's no one else around. Just wind, warm and perfumed with fig blossoms. The stars peek through the skylight like curious neighbors. Hermes drops onto a bench, legs swinging, and finally exhales like it's been a day. You sit beside him, cautiously, in case he decides to sprint off again. But for now, he's still, and then he asks you a question: what's a good next invention? You blink. You just invented music. Exactly, he says, grinning. Gotta keep the streak going. You consider suggesting a nap, or at least a juice box, but he's already rummaging through his woven reed satchel, which is somehow full of random objects despite having no pockets: twine, pebbles, a dried beetle wing, and half a pomegranate. His fingers close around something small and metal. Wait, where did he get metal? And he holds up what looks like a bent pin and a bit of wire. He frowns. Not good for a trap. Maybe a tiny sculpture. You lean back, watching this process. It's like following a squirrel with ADHD and a divine sense of ambition. Historians still argue whether the myths about Hermes' inventions were exaggerations or symbolic of ancient innovation. Some even claim Hermes was the Greeks' way of explaining how ideas just appear, a flash of brilliance wrapped in a story about a hyperactive god baby. Others say it's all poetic nonsense, but watching him now, you can see the logic. Hermes is that spark. The moment something new flickers into being, not just a tool, but a thought, he doesn't end up making anything, of course. The caduceus is enough for one evening. But the way he stares at the stars, you get the feeling he's reverse engineering the constellations just for fun. Then, without warning, he hops off the bench and disappears through a small archway that leads into the shadows. You groan and follow, ducking through ivy-covered doors and into a dim corridor carved into Olympus itself. It's cooler in here. Still. The air tastes like marble and myth. Eventually, Hermes finds a room filled with scrolls. Ancient, crackling, piled haphazardly. Definitely not a library, more like a closet full of divine homework. He pulls one out at random, unrolls it halfway, snorts at the contents, and tosses it back. They're so serious, he mutters, eyes scanning more scrolls. You'd think nobody around here ever laughed. He has a point. The other Olympians, noble, powerful, immortal, are famously intense. Thunder. War. Wisdom. Marriage. Death. They don't really do bedtime giggles. That's Hermes' job now, apparently. You sit on the floor, cross-legged, surrounded by scrolls and dust motes. Hermes perches on a crate, doodling something on parchment with a burnt stick. It's, maybe a fish. Or a shoe? Hard to tell, then he pauses. Do you think they'll be mad again? You glance up. Who? He shrugs. All of them. You think for a moment. Probably. Hermes laughs. Good. Then it's working. And just like that, the moment softens again. The mood shifts from myth to lullaby. The torchlight flickers gently against the walls, casting long shadows that look like gentle waves. Hermes leans back, arms folded behind his head, and sighs. He doesn't say it aloud, but you can tell he's pleased. Not just with the music, or the trade with Apollo, or the grand escape from consequences, but with being. With the act of creation. Of movement. Of possibility. You lie back too, staring at the ceiling, painted with stars, just like the sky outside. Everything feels far away and close at once. You can hear the gentle hum of Olympus settling into night. Some say Hermes never truly stops inventing. That even now, he wanders the world, slipping ideas into people's dreams. A flash of inspiration here. A sudden solution there. A melody no one remembers learning. Others say he's just a story, but as you drift off, the music of the lyre echoing faintly from somewhere down the hall, you know the truth, he's real enough. When you wake, though you're not sure you ever fully slept, the scroll room is empty. Hermes is gone again. Typical. You stretch, joints cracking like old temple doors, and shuffle to your feet. The scrolls lie exactly as he left them, skewed, scattered, and somehow more mysterious for their disarray. One has a crude drawing of a goat wearing sunglasses. Another is now shaped into something like an origami fish. Outside, Olympus has shifted. Morning here doesn't arrive with birdsong or yawns. It just is. The sky melts from peach to honey. Clouds float like they're posing for sculpture class. Everything smells faintly of nectar and smugness. You follow the familiar patter of Hermes' footsteps, light, erratic, occasionally upside down somehow, and find him perched on a column ledge, nibbling what appears to be a stolen apricot. He offers you half. You ever hear of Pandora? He asks, mouth full. You nod. The box? Jar, actually, he corrects, licking juice from his thumb. Always gets mistranslated. You shrug. Language is messy. Hermes would know. He's the god of that too, apparently. Communication, commerce, thieves, athletes, doorways. Honestly, it's like the Olympians played mythological bingo and Hermes called all of the above. He swings down from the column with a gymnast's ease, lands beside you, and pulls out the lyre again. Yes, that lyre. Turns out, Apollo gave it back after realizing it was too tricksy for his taste. Or maybe Hermes made another. You're never quite sure with him. He strums it lightly and hums. Want to meet my tortoise? You blink. You mean the one that was your lyre? He nods. Sort of. There's another one. Naturally, he leads you away from the polished perfection of Olympus and back toward the wild, tangled edge of the world, where the divine bleeds into the mortal. The path winds down through mossy rocks and whispering trees, until you arrive at a clearing beside a burbling spring. There, sunbathing like it's a personal religion, is a turtle, small, round. Completely unbothered, Hermes kneels beside it and murmurs something, soft, respectful, almost tender. This is Chelone, he says. Like the nymph who got turned into one. Different myth, same attitude. You sit nearby as he gently taps a rhythm on the turtle's shell. The creature blinks slowly, unamused but tolerant. You know, Hermes muses, people always think I'm just about stealing and running. But there's more to it. He strokes the shell lightly. Creation takes nerve. So does mischief. So does music. There's a pause. Then, also, I really was hungry that day. Those cows practically begged to be borrowed. You laugh. You're not sure if the turtle does, too, or if that was just a leaf rustling. historians still argue whether Hermes' turtle lyre was ever meant to be literal or symbolic. Some say it represents the unexpected materials of art. Others believe it's just a story to explain music's origin. But watching him now, tapping rhythms onto a reptile who might be half divine, you get the sense it's both. Everything's got a sound in it, he says, plucking a nearby reed. Even silence, if you stretch it. He plays a short, sleepy tune, low, meandering, like a brook telling bedtime stories to moss. The turtle tucks its head under its shell. That's probably approval. You lie back in the grass, letting the melody drift over you. Clouds roll lazily overhead, shaped like lions, then ships, then something that could be a banana if you squint. Hermes lies beside you, still strumming. You think I'll be remembered? He asks, almost dreamily. You glance over. You're a god. Yeah, he says. But there's remembering, and then there's being misunderstood forever in third-grade mythology units. He has a point. He flicks a pebble into the stream, where it plinks politely and disappears. Then, out of nowhere, want to help me prank Ares? You snort. Absolutely not. He laughs. Yeah. Probably a bad idea. The music slows again. This time, it's more like a lullaby than a melody. Something old and wordless. Something that remembers the first lyre and the first fingers that played it. Something that stretches between gods and mortals, jokes and meaning, pranks and poetry. It's oddly calming. Sacred, even, and in that moment, listening to a god hum to a turtle in a sun-dappled glade, you realize, this story isn't about theft or punishment or even music, it's about possibility. The idea that a baby born in a cave could reshape the world with a tortoise shell, a clever grin, and absolutely no permission, and maybe, just maybe, that's what stories are for. Time passes strangely near gods. It always has. One moment you're lying in a sun-warmed meadow beside a philosophizing turtle and a trickster god humming about fish stew, and the next, the sun is lower, shadows longer, the breeze cooler. Not cold, nothing is ever truly uncomfortable around Hermes, but just enough to make you sit up and wonder how many hours you've lost to lyre songs and lazing. Hermes, of course, hasn't noticed. Or he has and doesn't care, he's busy arranging flat stones into a circle. Why? Unknown. But he moves with focus, tongue poking out of the corner of his mouth like a child solving a puzzle he definitely wasn't assigned. Ritual? You ask. Lunch table. He replies, naturally. He finishes with a flourish, then flops backward, arms splayed dramatically. Do you know what's annoying about being a god? He asks the sky. You raise an eyebrow. Everything. Exactly, he grins. It's a lazy moment. A soft, in-between time. And maybe that's why you both end up talking. Really talking. Not just about jokes and cow theft and musical instruments made from woodland creatures, but about the stuff underneath. Hermes stares at the sky, arms behind his head. You know I'm the only one who can go anywhere. You nod slowly. You've heard the stories, Hermes the boundary crosser. The only god who can travel freely between Olympus, Earth, and the underworld. A divine hall pass. I can move, he says. But no one ever asks if I want to stay. That one sticks. Even the birds seem to quiet for a beat. Historians still argue whether Hermes was seen as a joyful wanderer or a lonely intermediary. A bridge or a barrier. Some texts praise him as a guardian of travelers, others paint him as a cunning trickster never quite welcome in any one place. I don't mind, Hermes continues, watching a bee hover near his nose. It's just, sometimes I wish I had a home that didn't move. You glance around. This isn't home. He shrugs. It's a home. So is the next cave, and the next temple, and that shady rock over there. He sits up suddenly. But maybe that's the point. What is? He looks at you. Being the god of things doesn't mean you have them. I'm the god of messages, I don't get to keep the words. I'm the god of paths, I'm always between places. And I'm the god of invention, but nothing I make is mine for long. It's not sad, the way he says it. Just, true, he tosses a pebble. It hits a log with a hollow plunk. Still. I'd rather move than be stuck. You nod. That makes sense. Movement is freedom. But it's also a kind of longing. A question that never gets answered. Hermes grins suddenly. Besides, I get all the snacks. He digs into his satchel, again, somehow bottomless, and pulls out a handful of fig-stuffed honey cakes. You eat one without asking questions. It's warm, sticky, and inexplicably cinnamon-scented, and in that sugary moment, the mood lifts, the god of transitions transitions the conversation. I should write a song about that turtle, he declares, didn't you already? Sure, but it needs a ballad version. Something with verses. Maybe a bridge. A tragic moment where the turtle doubts its own shell. He's scribbling with a charcoal nub on bark now, muttering lines to himself. Shell of sorrow, journey of jingles, it's absurd. And charming. And weirdly touching, because Hermes doesn't just invent things, he makes them funny. He adds play to power. Mischief to myth. His jokes are like his footsteps, quick, clever, and just slightly ahead of where you expected them to land. The sun continues its descent. Orange filters into the clearing. The turtle's still snoozing. Hermes is now trying to balance a lyre on his nose, and for a moment, you wonder, what would the world be like without him? No witty messages. No last-minute inventions. No beautifully chaotic musical instruments born from boredom and a passing tortoise. It'd be dull. Predictable. Safe, and also a lot less fun. Maybe that's the secret of Hermes. Not just movement. Not just invention. But play. The kind of sacred silliness that turns myths into stories, and gods into people you might actually like to sit beside on a long, strange day. He catches your eye, mid-lyre balancing act. You know what? He says, what? He grins. I do think the turtle's the real hero. Then he drops the lyre and starts humming again. A new tune. One with bounce and rhythm and something a little sleepy beneath the surface. You hum along, and just like that, the meadow begins to fade into dusk. The meadow has dimmed into evening, but Hermes shows no signs of tiring. You, however, are deeply aware of your mortal status. Your bones are soft, your eyelids softer. If you could curl up like Chelone the turtle and retreat into a shell, you would, but Hermes? No. He's just getting started. Come on, he says, tossing you the lyre as if it were a sack of apples. Let's go play for the muses. You blink. The actual muses? Of course, he says with a wink. They owe me a favor. You doubt that. But before you can ask follow-up questions, he's already halfway down a hillside path paved with glowing moss. Because of course the path glows. This is Hermes' world, half myth, half mischief. You trudge after him, cradling the lyre like it might decide to bite you. It's light but somehow hums with energy. Like it remembers being a turtle. Like it knows songs older than memory. The path leads to a marble amphitheater nestled in a valley of olive trees and moonflowers. Everything glows silver in the starlight. The wind hums in a different key here, gentler, more reverent, and there they are, the muses, all 9 of them, perched like cats on the stone steps. Some lounging, some whispering, one sketching something in the air with her fingertip. They shimmer faintly, not with sparkles or glitter, but with the quiet shine of ideas just beginning to form. They glance at Hermes. Some roll their eyes. One claps sarcastically. Look who remembered where we live, says one, smiling. Hermes bows deeply. Ladies. Trying to impress us again? Always. Historians still argue whether the muses were real figures or poetic metaphors. Some believe they represent different disciplines, history, poetry, dance, and more. Others suggest they were once mortal women, later deified. But tonight, under a sky that could cradle 1,000 stories, they feel real enough. Hermes gestures for you to sit. You obey, sinking into the stone with the lyre across your lap. He plops beside you and whispers, "Play something." You freeze. "I don't know how." "Exactly," he grins. "Best time to start." You hesitate. "Then strum, it's rough, of course. Discordant. More goose chase than swan song." But the lyre responds anyway, its strings giving off notes like sighs and secrets. The muses go still, one tilts her head. Another closes her eyes. And just like that, the melody becomes something bigger, guided by your hands but not controlled by them. Like the lyre knows what it wants to say and only needs a warm body to say it through, Hermes begins to hum along. Then he harmonizes. Then he sings. You weren't expecting singing. Especially not good singing. But his voice is rich and playful, like honey swirled into tea. He doesn't just sing notes, he teases them, bends them, dances with them. The muses begin to sway. One taps a rhythm on her scroll. Another snaps her fingers in time. It's not a performance. It's a conversation. A meeting between invention and inspiration. Between trickster and tradition. You're still playing. Somehow. Your fingers have stopped asking permission and started remembering patterns they never learned. Maybe the turtle is helping. Maybe the muses are. The melody twists into a waltz, then a lullaby, then something that sounds suspiciously like the theme song to a forgotten children's show. Hermes cackles and leans into the silliness. The muses giggle. Actual divine giggling. The amphitheater glows with something more than moonlight now. It's creativity. The sacred nonsense of making something just because it's fun, and suddenly, you get it, you understand why Hermes built the lyre in the first place, not for power or fame or even mischief. But because there was music in the world, and no one had made it yet. Because there was a turtle shell sitting there, asking to become something more. Because sometimes, creation starts with curiosity. You strum one last note, the sound floats up, weightless and final, like the closing page of a bedtime book. Silence follows. A soft, warm silence. The muses nod. One claps once, slowly. Not mockingly this time. Just. Appreciatively, Hermes bows again, but deeper. More sincere. You hand him the lyre, but he waves it away. Yours now. You blink. Seriously? He shrugs. I can always make another. You hold it gingerly, still unsure whether it's an instrument, an artifact, or a glorified turtle. Probably all three. It hums faintly in your lap like it's purring. The muses begin to drift off, vanishing one by one like smoke trails in reverse. Hermes watches them go, then sighs contentedly. That went better than expected, he says. You smile. You say that a lot, don't you? Constantly. He stands, stretches, and looks up at the stars. I think we just invented jazz, he says. You're not sure that's true, but you are sure that this music, this night, this absurd adventure, is exactly the kind of story people will tell for centuries, or whisper into dreams, or sing, softly, while rocking a baby to sleep. You don't remember walking back. That's the first clue you're slipping into mythspace again, where the laws of time and travel get fuzzy and directions depend more on mood than geography. One moment, you're in the amphitheater, cradling a semi-magical lyre and wondering whether you've just jammed with the literal concept of poetry. The next, you're back on the winding path of moss glow and moonlight, Hermes whistling ahead of you like this has all been a casual Tuesday. He turns around suddenly, walking backward without looking. You hungry? You pause. Always. He tosses you something wrapped in fig leaves. You unwrap it to find some kind of golden, glistening cheese pastry. It's warm. You take a bite. It's perfect. You made this? Borrowed it, he says. From a dream I once had. Tasted better in the dream, to be honest. You don't believe him. Or maybe you do. Either way, you eat the whole thing. As you lick crumbs from your fingers, he slows. His pace changes. There's a hush in the air now, not just quiet, but charged. Like the world is leaning in, you glance around, you've arrived somewhere new. Somewhere older, a field of standing stones stretches before you, bathed in silver-blue moonlight. Each stone is carved, not with words, but symbols. Curves and dots and lines that pulse with memory. Hermes speaks softly. This is where the lyre first sang. You look at him, he nods toward the stones. Every myth leaves an echo, he says. Some places hold them better than others. You walk between the stones, fingers trailing across ancient carvings. The air hums. The lyre hums. You hum. Hermes doesn't follow right away. He stays back, watching. His expression is different now. Not mischievous. Not smug. Something softer. Almost reverent. Then he steps forward and begins to speak, not loudly, not formally. Just narrating. Like a bedtime story told to the stars. There was once a boy, he says, born in a cave to a goddess who loved silence and a father who liked thunder. You listen, he didn't wait to grow up. He didn't ask permission. He just did things. Lied, yes. Stole, sure. But also, he made. Out of scraps and shells and whatever the world gave him. You sit on a flat rock. The lyre rests in your lap like it belongs there. He turned a turtle into music. He turned mischief into meaning. He made the gods laugh, and that mattered. Because laughter is also sacred. You close your eyes. The stone under you is warm. The night is full of stories waiting to be retold. Hermes walks the circle of stones slowly, one finger brushing each surface. Historians still argue whether the lyre came from Hermes, or whether Hermes came from the lyre. Whether the god shaped the music, or the music shaped the god. He stops in front of you. What do you think? You open your eyes, the stars above shimmer like punctuation marks in an endless sentence. The breeze carries a melody you don't remember starting. The lyre hums, again, I think, you say slowly, maybe both. He grins. Good answer. And then, because he's Hermes and cannot help himself, he adds, but also, it was definitely my idea. You laugh. The lyre laughs, somehow. Even the stones seem to lean a little closer, as if enjoying the punchline. He sits beside you, together. You play, not a performance. Not even a song. Just notes, scattered like breadcrumbs, picked up by the wind, remembered by the stones. There's a kind of peace here. One not often associated with trickster gods or myths about stolen cows. But it's real. And it settles over you like a soft blanket. You pluck a string, Hermes whistles harmony, the stars blink in rhythm, and for a moment, the universe doesn't just exist. It listens. The music fades, but the stillness lingers. It's a rare kind of stillness, not empty or dead, but full. Like the air has soaked up every note you and Hermes played and is now cradling them, rocking them gently, letting them drift like feathers across the night. You breathe in. Slowly. Deeply, the lyre in your lap has gone quiet. Not asleep, just resting. Like a storyteller between tales, Hermes stretches beside you, arms behind his head, eyes on the sky. You ever think the stars are just gods spying on their old stories? You glance upward. The constellations are bright tonight. Familiar but slightly wrong. Maybe Hermes rearranged them as a prank once and never bothered to fix it. I mean, he continues, we've all done it. Dipped in to check if someone's still telling our tales. I caught Athena eavesdropping on a children's book club once. You raise an eyebrow, she pretended she was studying the narrative arc, he adds. But she cried when they got to the part about the sad owl. You both fall into a soft chuckle, then Hermes goes quiet again. That's unusual. You wait, eventually, he says, there's one thing the myths always skip. You glance over. His expression isn't playful this time. It's thoughtful. Far away, they talk about the theft. The music. The pranks. The gods fighting and forgiving. But they don't talk about after. After? Yeah. He says. After the lyre. After Apollo forgave me. After I'd invented my first real thing. He picks up a stone, tosses it, catches it. No one tells you what happens once you've proven yourself. Once you're officially clever. Once you've won. The stone makes a soft clink as it hits another in the circle. Turns out, he says, you still wake up the next morning. Still have to eat. Still want someone to laugh at your worst jokes. He glances at you. You ever make something you thought would fix everything? You think about it. A story. A song. A perfectly arranged shelf. A message left unread. Yeah, you say, and did it? You shake your head, he nods. Me neither. Historians still argue whether Hermes' Lyre was his masterpiece or just his opening act. Some ancient poets claim it was a stepping stone to diplomacy, to poetry, to divine recognition. Others think it was a fluke. A lucky accident on the way to more important stories. Hermes, sitting here beside you, seems to lean into both interpretations. As if he likes the contradiction. As if contradiction itself is the most Hermes-like thing in the world, he plucks one soft note from the lyre. Just one. It hangs in the air like a question you're not meant to answer, then, with a grin, he says, come on. I want to show you something else ridiculous. You groan. Can it wait? Absolutely not. He stands, dusts off his tunic, and starts walking, not down a path this time, but through the stones. Like the fields decided to become a corridor. The air shifts with him. Faint blue glows flicker at the edges of your vision. Myth-space again, you follow. Because of course you do, you walk past images burned faintly into the stone, a turtle curled in a cave. A boy stealing cows. A sun god laughing. A song born from a shell, and then, suddenly, you're somewhere new, a cave, maybe. Or a temple. Or the inside of a dream. It smells like cedar and beeswax and old secrets. The floor is smooth stone. The walls flicker with shadowy carvings. Shifting ever so slightly when you blink, in the center, a pedestal. And on it, another lyre, not a turtle shell this time. Not quite. This one's made of wood and gold, strung with what looks like strands of sunlight. It hums just by being looked at, Hermes whispers, version 2. You circle it. Slowly. Reverently. The craftsmanship is breathtaking. The form is elegant, the curves fluid, the tuning perfect. This one, Hermes says, I never gave away. You glance at him. I made it, he says, but didn't let anyone touch it. Not Apollo. Not the muses. Not even Dionysus, and he loves a jam session. Why not? He shrugs. Because not everything has to be shared. Some things can just be mine. It's the quietest thing he's said all day. You nod, then, gently, he picks it up, plucks a single note, and the room lights up, not with fire or magic or lightning, but with memory. You see flashes, Hermes as a child, alone in the cave. The first time he strummed the turtle shell. The moment he heard Apollo's laughter instead of fury. The awkward peace offering. The applause from the muses. The feeling, not of triumph, but of belonging. It's not a performance. It's not even a song, it's a memory. Made music, and just like that, it fades. Hermes sets the lyre down again. Not casually, but gently. Like it's something sacred, then he turns to you and grins. Okay, he says. Now that was ridiculous. You laugh, and the cave, temple, dream, whatever it is, laughs with you. You exit the cave that might not be a cave with a strange, delicious ache in your chest, not sadness. Not joy. Something in between. Like the feeling you get after rereading an old letter, or hearing a song that reminds you of a version of yourself you'd almost forgotten. Hermes walks beside you again, barefoot now, letting his feet slap against the stone with deliberately obnoxious wet sponge sounds. Every few steps, he hops or spins or invents a new way to lean dramatically on invisible air. Do you ever stop performing? You ask, he gasps, clutching his chest like a tragic actor. Darling. I am the patron god of performance. You roll your eyes, but your lips twitch into a smile. The path winds upward again, always upward, it seems, and soon you're standing on a cliff edge, the stars spread out in every direction. Below, a sea of clouds. Above, nothing but space, there's a small wooden bench. Just one. Hermes gestures toward it with exaggerated ceremony. Throne of the semi-gods, he declares. Reserved for mortals who've survived 2 or more spontaneous musical collaborations with divine beings. You sit, the wood is warm. The wind is soft. The lyre hums faintly in your lap, as if content just to be here. Hermes sits cross-legged on the ground beside you. So, he says, plucking a blade of silver grass, you've heard the story. You nod, but do you believe it? You look at him. That you stole cows, invented a lyre out of a turtle, got away with it, and somehow charmed the muses into giving you a 5-star review? He grins. That's the boring version. You laugh softly. I believe parts of it. He nods approvingly. Good. That's the only honest answer. Belief is a kind of music, anyway. Some people need full orchestras. Others hum alone in the shower. He flicks the grass into the air. It vanishes before it lands, and stories. He continues, are the instruments we play belief on. Historians still argue whether the lyre story is an origin myth, a symbolic narrative about language and sound, or just an elaborate metaphor for creative expression. Some say it was meant to explain how culture spreads, through theft, transformation, and unexpected harmony. Others suggest it's simply about the turtle. Because sometimes, the shell is the story. Hermes pulls something from his pocket, a turtle shell. You stare, relax, he says. This one was already empty. I found it at the bottom of a stream. He turns it over. See this crack here? I almost used it for the lyre. But it split too much. He hands it to you. It's rough, worn, imperfect. Beautiful, you run your fingers along the edge. It fits your hands like something old and kind and quietly useful. Keep it, Hermes says. Consider it. A blank page. You nod. Thanks. He stands and stretches again, his joints making cartoonish cracking noises that echo much louder than they should. Now, he says, time for a snack. You're not surprised, a picnic cloth appears, yes, literally appears, on the grass. It's loaded with foods that don't quite belong in the same century, olives, sesame cakes, marshmallows, jelly beans, grape leaves, and something that smells suspiciously like warm cinnamon toast. You both sit, you eat, you don't ask where the food came from, or what's in the jelly beans that makes them taste like honeyed figs dipped in lightning. You just eat, and Hermes tells stories, not the kind from books or tablets, but the off-the-record kind, the time he tricked Hades into loaning him a goose, the dream he had about a snake teaching dance, the bet he made with Athena that involved 3 pickles and a banjo. You laugh. You chew. You exist, it's simple, and it's enough. Eventually, Hermes flops onto his back and stares at the stars. You ever wonder what happens to gods who get bored? You lie beside him, do they fade? You ask. A turtle shell, you stare, relax, he says. This one was already empty. I found it at the bottom of a stream. He turns it over. See this crack here? I almost used it for the lyre. But it split too much. He hands it to you. It's rough, worn, imperfect. Beautiful, you run your fingers along the edge. It fits your hands like something old and kind and quietly useful. Keep it, Hermes says. Consider it. A blank page. You nod. Thanks. He stands and stretches again, his joints making cartoonish cracking noises that echo much louder than they should. Now, he says, time for a snack. You're not surprised, a picnic cloth appears, yes, literally appears, on the grass. It's loaded with foods that don't quite belong in the same century: olives, sesame cakes, marshmallows, jelly beans, grape leaves, and something that smells suspiciously like warm cinnamon toast. You both sit, you eat, you don't ask where the food came from, or what's in the jelly beans that makes them taste like honeyed figs dipped in lightning. You just eat, and Hermes tells stories, not the kind from books or tablets, but the off-the-record kind. The time he tricked Hades into loaning him a goose, the dream he had about a snake teaching dance, the bet he made with Athena that involved 3 pickles and a banjo. You laugh. You chew. You exist, it's simple, and it's enough. Eventually, Hermes flops onto his back and stares at the stars. You ever wonder what happens to gods who get bored? You lie beside him, do they fade? You ask, sometimes, he says. Or they reinvent themselves. Or become metaphors. You both stare up at a particularly smug-looking constellation shaped like a goose. Probably not a coincidence, people stop telling your story, he continues, and you sort of unravel. Unless someone finds you again. Believes a little. He taps your shoulder, which you did. You blink. So I saved you. Let's not be dramatic, he says. But yes. The wind picks up slightly. The stars flicker. You lie there, full of food and myth and music, and for a moment, just a moment, you wonder if you've become part of the story too, if one day, someone will hum a tune and feel a flicker of this exact night, like a dream, half remembered, and maybe that's the point of myths. Not to tell you what happened, but to remind you what's possible. The stars begin to shift, not like planets moving across centuries or the slow turn of the earth, more like a gentle theatrical curtain being pulled back. The constellations rearrange themselves just slightly, the way someone might straighten a painting frame after walking past it. You sit up, Hermes remains lying down, arms folded behind his head. They're getting ready, he says, for what? For the ending. Or the next act. Or just bedtime, depending on how you interpret cosmic choreography. You shake your head, amused, but something is changing, the wind softens further. The air grows warmer, tinged with the scent of citrus blossoms and beeswax. The grass under you thickens. Velvet-like. The bench behind you quietly melts away into a low stone seat carved with spirals and tiny musical notes. Hermes sits up, brushes a crumb from his chin, and peers at you. How's your memory? You shrug. Depends. I can name all the original Pokémon but not where I left my house keys yesterday. He snaps his fingers. Perfect. Suddenly, the lyre is in your hands again. You don't remember picking it up. It's just there. Familiar. Waiting, Hermes says, play. You hesitate. I don't really know how. You do, though, he says. Because you listened. You watched. You felt it. That's the real way. You glance down at the strings. They shimmer slightly in the starlight. Each one a different hue: ochre, copper, saffron, deep blue. You strum, not a song, exactly. More like a gesture. A hello. Or maybe a thank you. The notes stretch into the sky. The stars blink in reply. Hermes closes his eyes and hums along, and now the wind has a rhythm. It lifts the grass, ruffles the leaves on nearby olive trees that definitely weren't there 10 seconds ago, spins the clouds below in slow spirals. A note drifts, soft and low, landing in your chest like a heartbeat. Hermes opens his eyes and whispers, "That's it. You play again." And now the images come, not like visions, not like hallucinations, but like memories whispered through music. The baby Hermes, wrapped in his mother's arms, eyes already gleaming with mischief. The stolen cows, placid and patient, blinking under a clever disguise of backward sandals, Apollo's surprise, the laughter, the moment his anger slipped sideways into curiosity, the first pluck of the turtle shell, the resonance that made even gods lean in, the muses nodding, faint smiles on their luminous faces. You strum again, the sea appears, flat and golden. A ship drifting gently. A turtle floating beside it. Hermes says, "You're writing your own version now." You blink, he's right, the music isn't repeating the old myth. It's adding you to it. A quiet remix. A dream nested inside a dream, and, true to the style of any good myth, there's food involved. Somewhere in the melody is the flavor of fig cake. The crunch of honeyed walnuts. The salty sweet mix of cheese and dates, also, a brief and inexplicable taste of pickled radish. Hermes probably slipped that in for a laugh. Historians, he murmurs, still argue whether mortals ever really entered myth. Or if myths just slipped into dreams and borrowed your faces. He plucks a string beside you, together, you create something new. Not a song, not a story, more like a myth echo, warm, wobbly, full of jokes and stars and soft-footed gods. After a while, Hermes lowers his hand and lets the silence settle, the stars stop spinning, the wind gentles to a hush, you hold the lyre close, cradled against your chest, he leans over. Time to go. Where? Back. You hesitate. Will I remember this? He smiles, not a trickster's smirk, but a quiet smile of someone who knows what it means to be forgotten and remembered all at once. Enough of it, he says. And more when you need it. He taps your forehead lightly, everything folds. Not crashes. Not fades. Just folds. Like a letter being sealed. A page being turned. A hammock rocking you slowly in moonlight. You hear the lyre hum once more. You feel your body settle into something softer, quieter. You've walked through myth. Played beside a god. Heard the echo of a turtle turned into music, and now, it's time to rest. You open your eyes, not abruptly, but the way petals unfold in soft morning light. You're back, wherever back is, not quite your own bed. Not quite the mythscape. Somewhere in between, where the blankets are made of memory and the air smells faintly of lemon peel and old parchment, the lyre is gone, but your hands remember it. Your fingertips still tingle with the resonance of invisible strings. Your arms hold the shape of something recently cherished. You sit up slowly, there's no sign of Hermes. No laughter in the distance. No mischievous footprints or flickering shadows playing tricks on the corners of your vision, just stillness, but it's a different kind of stillness than the one you woke with earlier. This one hums. Not loudly. Just enough to remind you, the story isn't over, it's just chosen to rest. On the nearby table, was that table always there, rests a folded piece of parchment. You reach for it, the paper crackles like dry leaves. There's one word written on the outside, in looping, unnecessary calligraphy, thanks. You smile despite yourself. Of course he left a note. Of course it says nothing and everything. You open it, inside, a few short lines. If you ever need me, hum a tune, or steal something silly, or lie beautifully, or laugh when you shouldn't, I'll hear it. You set the parchment down and rise. Your legs feel normal again. Solid. Human. Slightly sore from adventuring through story terrain, you look around, the room is plain. Wooden beams, a few dusty scrolls, a bowl of apples. On the wall hangs a map with no labels, just a line of music notes running along one of the rivers. You run a finger along the map, the notes shift. They rearrange slightly. One cluster hums, stop that, you say aloud, smiling. You walk to the window. Outside, it's dawn. The first light slices across the hills, warm and golden and completely uninterested in your adventures. The world continues, utterly unaware that you've just created music with a mythological god, which is exactly how it should be, because if myths are worth anything, they don't replace reality. They soak into it. Like syrup into bread. Like laughter into silence. Like dreams into the folds of waking thought, you stretch. Your shoulders crack in a way that is aggressively mortal, and yet, you feel lighter. Not just physically, but in that deep in the chest way, like a tangled knot's finally loosened. Like you've remembered something important that doesn't need to be explained. You eat an apple, it's crisp. Tart. Completely normal, except. There's a tiny bite missing. You glance at the parchment, that cheeky god, you finish it anyway. Outside, birds begin to sing. Not mythic birds. Just regular ones. Probably, you sit on the floor, back to the wall, eyes half closed, and in the stillness, your mind hums again, not music, not quite, just a memory of rhythm. Of harmony. Of the ridiculous, sacred fact that somewhere in the story of the universe, a turtle helped invent one of the most beautiful sounds known to mortals or gods, and that you, were part of that story for a little while. You don't know how long you sit there, time feels optional now, like socks or formal punctuation. The sunlight drips lazily across the floorboards, painting the room in stripes. You trace one stripe with your toe, watching it slowly inch forward like it has nowhere in particular to be. There's no urgency, no checklist, no epilogue waiting to be written, but even still. You start humming, softly. Absent-mindedly, just a few notes, probably wrong, probably out of tune, but yours, and the room listens, not in a magical, enchanted sort of way. Not with glowing walls or wind chimes made from ancient prophecies. It listens the way a quiet kitchen listens when you're making toast, kindly. Patiently, like it's been waiting for you to feel safe enough to sing. You let the tune drift. It doesn't sound like the lyre, it sounds like you. Eventually, you rise, your legs creak, your neck pops, the spell is broken. Or maybe it was never a spell. Maybe it was just stillness. With really good lighting, you stretch, shuffle toward the door, and open it. Outside, the same hills. The same morning air. But now you notice things. The curl of a dandelion seed lifting into the breeze. The way the stones on the path form an almost musical pattern underfoot. The smell of something baking, not sweet, exactly, but warm. Ancient. Down the hill, there's a small market just setting up. You see a woman laying out herbs, a boy wrestling a crate of figs, a one-eyed dog napping on a fish cart. None of them notice you, which is perfect. You walk among them, silent, smile tucked in your pocket. No one asks your name. No one asks where you came from, but a few nod. One merchant, an old man selling honey cakes, hands you a sample without speaking. It tastes like clove and lemon and a story you almost forgot. You nod back. A girl braiding her mother's hair sings under her breath. The melody is familiar. Not the same tune you hummed, but close. Like a cousin. Like myth passing quietly between mouths without needing permission. You keep walking. A dusty lane opens to a small courtyard. A fountain trickles lazily in the center. On one side, a mural, half-worn, shows a boy strumming a turtle shell while a sun-crowned figure watches, arms crossed but smiling. Someone's painted a flower crown on both of them. Recent. Sloppy. Adorable. You sit by the fountain, let the breeze tickle your skin. Let the memories float to the surface like leaves on slow water, and again, you think about that moment, when Hermes asked if you believed the story. You do, maybe not in the factual way, but in the way that matters, the way you believe in laughter even when you're sad. Or warmth even when the blanket slips off in the middle of the night. You believe in the story because it believes in you. Historians still argue whether myths shape us or we shape the myths. Whether the turtle-lute tale was created to explain music or simply to prove that even the gods needed a little mischief to get through the day. But as you sit here, hands folded, eyes half closed, surrounded by the soft murmur of an ordinary day, you realize something. The lyre wasn't the point, the listening was. Someone, once, turned a shell into sound, and the world listened. And now it's your turn to listen back. You hear footsteps behind you, a small voice says, "Hey." You turn, a child stands there, holding what appears to be a bowl with a stick glued to it. "Look," they say proudly. "It's a lyre." You blink, then grin. It's beautiful. They beam. It doesn't work, though. I think I need a turtle. You laugh. Or maybe a god. They nod solemnly. Or glue that sticks better. And off they run. You lean back, the sun now warm against your face. If this is the real world again, fine. It's not so bad. There's cake. There's laughter. There's glue that mostly works, and somewhere out there, a turtle shell is waiting for its next story. You close your eyes, and hum again. Later, hours or maybe moments, you find yourself walking a path that wasn't there before. It winds uphill, flanked by tall reeds and humming grass. The air is thicker now, but not heavy. Like syrup. Or sleep. You take each step slowly, without thinking too hard about where the path leads. Your feet know. The sky overhead dims, not from storm clouds, but from something softer. Twilight, maybe. Or the kind of light that only exists between waking and dreaming. You crest a hill, there's a small grove ahead, and in the center, a tree unlike any you've seen. Its bark is a pale copper. Its leaves shimmer with the full spectrum of sunset. Hanging from its branches, not fruit, but instruments. Dozens of them. Tiny harps, flutes carved from reeds, lyres shaped like sea creatures, even a drum that gently pulses with no one playing it. You step closer, each instrument hums softly. Not playing melodies, but holding them. Like they're waiting to be chosen. Like they remember every song ever played beneath this tree. You reach for one lyre, not the one from before, but a cousin. Smaller. Darker wood. Fewer strings. As your fingers graze it, a quiet memory blooms behind your eyes. Hermes handing you a turtle shell, the stars dancing in rhythm, a joke about pickled radish that made you snort laugh in a way you hadn't since childhood. You sit beneath the tree. And for the first time, you play without thinking. You don't try to impress. Or perfect. Or even understand. You just let your fingers move, and the grove listens. It doesn't clap or cheer. It doesn't sparkle with magic. But the leaves above sway in time with your rhythm. The grass leans toward you. The instruments hanging in the tree adjust slightly, tuning themselves to your pitch. You play for no audience, and somehow, it feels like the truest audience of all. Eventually, your hands grow tired. You rest the lyre in your lap. The breeze stirs, cool and steady. You lie back, watching the branches stretch against the darkening sky, and you hear something. No, feel something, a presence. You smile before you see him, don't say a word, you whisper. Hermes flops down beside you, a half-eaten fig in his hand, mouth's full, he mumbles. Lucky you. You both stare upward for a while, then, you were right, you say, obviously, he replies through fig crumbs. You roll your eyes, the music. The myth. The turtle. He smiles, just a little. It's all the same thing, really. Which is? Turning the unexpected into something beautiful. You nod, the long silence settles. Not awkward, companionable. Easy. Finally, Hermes stands and brushes off his tunic. Which does absolutely nothing to remove the fig stains. I should go, he says. You don't ask where, you don't ask when he'll be back, you just nod. He pauses, then pulls something from behind your ear, a tiny pick made of shell. For next time, he says. You take it, and when you look up again, he's gone, not dramatically. No smoke. No poof. Just. No longer here. You lie back again, the stars return, familiar now. Friendly, your limbs relax. Your breath slows. You've walked through stories, hummed in harmony with the gods, and learned that the shape of music is sometimes a shell, sometimes a laugh, and sometimes just the quiet hum of being exactly where you need to be. You close your eyes, and the grove sighs with you. The instruments above sway gently, the lyre at your side glows faintly, like a sleeping firefly, and somewhere far off, through dreams or myth or something in between, you hear the echo of a turtle's footsteps, soft and slow, carrying another story toward the stars. And now, let the story drift. You've walked beside a god, strummed the edge of myth, and tasted the quiet wonder of a turtle-shaped song. The tale has been told, not loudly, not with horns or declarations, but like a lullaby whispered beneath olive leaves. A soft unfolding, now, the grove sleeps, the wind has gentled to a hush, like someone smoothing out a crumpled blanket. The leaves above no longer sway, they rest, curled in on themselves like drowsy thoughts. Somewhere nearby, an old lyre hums a fading note, like it too is ready to dream, even your breathing has slowed. Long. Even. Calm, the stars, scattered like quiet lanterns across the sky, begin their slow rotation. You don't need to name them. You don't even need to look. They're there, holding the space above you. Keeping time, the grass beneath you, still warm from the day, cradles your shape like a memory. Every inch of you is sinking, not downward, but inward. Into rest. Into stillness. Into the gentle hush that follows every well-told story. You hear no footsteps, no harp, no voice, but something remains. Maybe it's a single note from the lyre, maybe it's the soft echo of laughter from a god who never stays in one place, maybe it's just your own breath, reminding you, you were there, you played, you listened, you remembered, and now, there is nothing left to do, no plot to solve, no string to pluck. Just the rhythm of your body easing into peace. The grove fades, the stars blink slower, the night folds in around you, soft as wool. Good night, dreamer, the myth will wait, the lyre will keep, and the turtle always knows the way back.